everyone, welcome to Connect the World. I'm Lynda Kinkade, sitting in for Becky Anderson. We begin with a story shrouded in the fog of war. On the front lines of the fight against ISIS in Iraq and Syria, there are allegations that a series of US-led airstrikes killed hundreds of civilians about a week ago. Have a look at these pictures. Some of the victims of what could be the most deadly attack of them all in Mosul on March 17th. Some say 200 people were killed in the strike. The Pentagon acknowledges that it was carrying out bombing raids in that area on that very day and that it is investigating what happened. But the Iraqi government is insisting all those reports are, quote, full of exaggerations and major errors, and that the death toll is far lower, and that it was the work of an ISIS bomb on the ground. Well, our Arwa Damon is in Erbil following these developments. She's about an hour and a half drive from Mosul. Arwa, good to have you with us. We already have conflicting views of what may have happened and how many civilians may have died. What can you tell us?
Well, Lynda, this is what we've been able to sort of begin to piece together so far. It does seem that on the day in question, there was a large truck that was moving towards Iraqi forces in this particular neighborhood in western Mosul, and that an airstrike was called in. The force of the strike that did take out the truck that is believed to have been laden with explosives did also result in the complete collapse of a number of homes, it would seem, in the area. We spoke to a man, an eyewitness, who lived a few homes down, who said that the strike happened at about 6:45 in the morning, and that one of the homes in particular had around 5 to 6 families sheltering in it, and just the homeowner's family was at least 17 people in number. Now, we also spoke with an Iraqi general who is the spokesman for the Joint Military Command. He said that based on information he was able to gather, in just one of these homes there were at least 130 people, and according to him, so far only 49 bodies have been recovered. The head of Iraq's Civil Defense said that they managed to pull out 81 bodies from underneath the rubble. This particular eyewitness said that in the aftermath of the strike and the chaos that ensued, he said that as he and his family were fleeing, trying to get out of the neighborhood and out of the danger zone, they could hear people screaming, "I'm alive, save me," from underneath the rubble. But we do understand that it did take rescue teams quite some time to be able to get into this particular area because of the severity and the dangers that existed around it. At the end of the day, despite the fact that there are various different conflicting reports, and this is still something that is under investigation both by the US-led coalition and by the Iraqis, we do know that tragically it would seem dozens of civilians have died, and this is one of the many challenges that this country faces at this stage. ISIS does not allow civilians to leave. We have reported on, and we have ourselves been very well aware of situations where ISIS does not allow families to leave homes. We do know that in trying to, and perhaps what is a vain effort given the circumstances, protect themselves, people do tend to try to gather in homes where they think that they will perhaps be safer. But this is a war that is very unconventional, to say the least, and it is the civilian population that is really bearing the brunt of this violence as the Iraqi forces do try to push forward. Now, they are going to be attempting to change or at least modify their tactics, using less airstrikes, less mechanized movements, trying to rely more on sniper teams, ground forces, and on drones. But this is exactly what so many people were warning about and what so many people were afraid of. What is going to happen to the civilian population in Mosul as the Iraqi forces move forward, bearing in mind that ISIS, as so many have said, is an organization that has absolutely no mercy. We've spoken to civilians who have lost family members in other incidents who said that their family members begged ISIS fighters to be allowed to leave their homes, and that they were just told no. We do know that ISIS is using the population as human shields, and this is just one of the ugly, horrific tragedies of this war.
It is absolutely horrific. All right, we are going to continue to follow this story. Arwa Damon, good to have you there in Erbil for us. Thank you very much.
On that Friday, that there had been one on top of a roof, a sniper, and then some in the street. So they had stayed inside of their houses because they felt threatened. that they saw them shooting up at the aircraft, and then this explosion happened. Some of the people I talked to said that the houses just started coming, the building started falling down on them. Some saw that truck that was parked on the street explode, and it wasn't clear why that was, if that was triggered by the strike or not. And some did manage to escape unharmed. Some of the houses were still standing and people were in them on Friday, but a good number of them were destroyed.
Well, let's delve a little bit more into this. CNN military analyst, retired U.S. Lt General Mark Hertling joins us now from Orlando via Skype. Always good to have you with us.
Thank you, Linda. It's great to be with you under tough circumstances.
Yeah, really tough, really horrific case we're talking about here. Before we get into a bit more about the details of it, or what we know at least, can you just give us a bit of a sense of what this part of Mosul is like, this urban warfare as it's known? How difficult is it?
It is probably the worst place to conduct combat operations. Eastern Mosul is not as difficult as this northwestern portion of Mosul city on the western side of the Tigris. And what makes it so tough is the streets are narrow, the houses are very compact and jammed together. They're mostly big houses, 1- and 2-story houses that are made of concrete and with concrete roofs. And having fought there many times before, the description of what just occurred is an indicator of tactics of terrorist groups where they will hoard civilians into areas where they are fighting, and in fact maybe even sometimes put them in houses where they are fighting from. Now, what was interesting about the description that the reporter from the LA Times just gave you, it is an indicator to me of something I saw not only in Mosul but many other places within Iraq, where terrorists would come in and literally put bombs inside of houses to be tripped and would allow the cement roofs to fall in on the people on the inside. They're called house-borne explosive devices. And it is a technique that the terrorist groups will use when they're leaving the area to trip up the follow-on forces from the Iraqi security forces. And so the indication that this could have only been from an airstrike certainly is not true, but that will be investigated as part of the routine that the coalition forces do.
Yeah, it absolutely will be, because as you allude to, it may have been a truck explosion as well. As the United Nations pointed out, international humanitarian law is clear that all parties to a conflict are obliged to do everything possible to protect civilians. Just explain for us, if you can, what sort of procedures happen before a strike, an airstrike, is carried out to minimize any sort of risk to civilians.
Yeah, there are actually two types of airstrikes, Linda. One is called a kinetic strike package, a KSP, and that will occur when you have a pre-planned target, basically, where you know something is going on at a location, whether it be a field or a building or some type of park, and you know that you're sending aircraft from the airfield to that particular location to strike a known target where you have identified through intelligence that there are enemy locations there. Now, the other kind is called troops in contact, or a TIC, and that's normally when you have ground forces on the ground heading toward an area, conducting an operation, and they come under fire by enemy forces. And they immediately turn to their air supporters and say, we need aircraft to hit this building or this location right now because we are under fire from that location. And usually the pilot that's circling around in the sky above this operation has seconds to react. They will be given either a grid plot, coordinate on the ground, or the people on the ground will paint the target with a laser beam, so the bomb will follow that laser signature to the target. Those are normally conducted very quickly. There's a lot of scurrying and a lot of drama and smoke and fire and ash and all the things that accompany combat that will cause confusion in those kind of situations. Those are the kinds that normally relate to accidents or when bad things occur, when you have to quickly support forces that are in contact on the ground. I would suspect that that's this kind of operation that occurred in this particular case, if it was in fact an airplane or an aircraft dropping ordnance on a building in this case. And I'm not convinced it was, Linda.
Okay, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, always good to have your perspective on this. We really appreciate your time today, and there are a couple of investigations underway, so we will follow those closely. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynda. Always.
Well, live from the CNN Centre, this is Connect the World. Coming up, a war still unknown to much of the world. More than 2 years after deadly fighting, now the people of Yemen are dying of starvation. We'll have that just ahead. Plus, a controversial election in Hong Kong. Protesters called for one person, one vote. We'll look at the challenges the new leader faces in uniting the territory.